everyone, this is Devleena welcoming you once again to another iconic episode of Iconic Ads with Devleena and Saurabh. And with me, I have my expert co host, Mr. Saurabh Bajaj. Happy to have you again, Saurabh. And I'm so happy to announce our guest for today, Miss Aditi Anand, who is heading creative strategy for Coca-Cola, India, and Southwest Asia. And she has worked with substantial companies like Flipkart, Airtel, Micromax, Nokia. So we have lots to talk, Aditi. And before we get into the conversation, I'll play the ad.
The Flipkart fashion sale is back. Up to 70% off on clothing, footwear, accessories and more. Flipkart.com, the online megastore.
Okay, so I joined Flipkart in 2014, right after spending about 7 years with Airtel. And my mandate there was I joined as a senior brand manager, and I was responsible for two categories. The first category was fashion and lifestyle category, which was already launched, and we were looking at all your knickknacks like bed sheets, curtains, pillows, cutlery, crockery, etc., etc. And while that was true on the business side, that I was responsible for scaling up and marketing and launching these categories, I think a very important thing, and the first mandate that I got when I entered the organization, was that my boss he sat me down and he said that Flipkart is known to be an electronics and book seller. And if you look at the customer profile today, we have overwhelmingly 95% men, maybe even more, buying from us. So now we are branching out into new categories, and your role is to actually get women consumers to become online shoppers. While you'll do fashion and while you'll do home, you should have your eye on the larger goal, which is how can I convert women into also online shoppers? And that was a very interesting challenge. And that's from where I started. The businesses and the categories that I took care of were these. There was also toys and baby care, etc. All women first category. There was a beauty category, personal care, etc. So I was also taking care of those, but these two were largely the big bets, and therefore you see a lot of ATL intervention on these two categories.
One of the things that I'm assuming will emerge through our conversation was about the fact that in communication, there is a lot about tone, mnemonics, and the overall look and feel of a particular brand. It must always look consistent. And what I like about Flipkart, it always feels very youthful and modern, right? But in my head, it never looks very premium or affluent. It looks like a bit of the middle of the rung, is the way I see it. That's my personal perspective. Yeah, it's like an everyday man's shopping destination. Yeah. So I wanted to understand whether one, is this deliberate? And second, I wanted to reflect on their mnemonics from the kid adults.
So I'll try and answer all the questions, many questions there. I think your first question is that it doesn't feel premium. And is that deliberate, or is that something that just happened? I think it's deliberate, and it's deliberate because when e-commerce came in, I think we were already, as happens with any consumer technology product, the first wave of consumers are men, millennial, metro, the more affluent segment. But beyond a point, if you want to extend yourself and if you want to penetrate the market and get everybody on board, you need to be appealing to everybody. Second, Flipkart is not a product, it's a service. It's a retailer that sells products from the lowest price point. So the second is that Flipkart is not a product, it's a service brand, and it's a retailer, and a retailer offers you wide variety across different categories, starting from the lowest price band to the highest price band. So one particular imagery does not work because you are like a hypermart. You have across categories, across price bands, you have different things that you sell across price bands. Even if you go back and look at some of the Amazon advertising that happened at that point in time, whether it was Chongpur ke Cheetah or it was Aur Dikhao, if you look at the semantics and the visual grammar, they were also trying to be and come across not as a premium international brand, but very Indian, speaking to Bharat. And the main reason behind that was that, both the brands and even Snapdeal and some others who were there at that point in time, they wanted to kind of come across as Indian for everyone, for the masses, have a wide variety, etc., etc. So that was one. On your question about kids and then moving away and dropping kids and moving to another youth territory, again, that was a call that was taken, a very deliberate call, and we had long discussions around this, and some of us agreed and some of us didn't. But I think when the kids communication came, the reason for using kids as a creative device and posing as adults is because it was a new habit that we wanted to tell consumers, and therefore kids was a good device to say that it's as easy as a child's play. So online shopping is not tricky, it's not tough, it's really as simple as like a young 5-year, 6-year-old kid can do. So if you look at a lot of kids-based advertising that happened during the first 6 to 7 years, it was basically breaking the barriers and increasing category adoption. And that category adoption over a 6-7 years happened because people started shopping for electronics, branded goods, books, and that trust factor came in. Now, the next phase was, how do we launch newer categories? How do we get women consumers? How do we scale up fashion? And fashion as a category has very youth codes, slightly maybe edgy codes, aspirational codes. And how do you do that using kids was becoming a challenge. Similarly, if tomorrow I want to sell curtains, doing that through kids was becoming a challenge. And also a little bit of a fatigue was coming in with the same creative device. We saw that with Zuzu's also, by the way, with Vodafone, that the first or the second season did very well. And from the third season, there was a little bit of a decay from the consumer end that started happening because it became predictable. So that novelty around a particular creative device kind of goes away if you can't refresh it in a very good manner. So it was a very deliberate call taken to do away with kids and launch the couple of new categories, talking to women consumers, talking about propositions. And that's why the kids kind of went away and it became more youthful, and, different kind of communication came into that. There was a third question also that you asked, I think around the blue bar, something around the blue bar. What was that question? Sorry.
So one of the things that I notice is that the big thing for both these retailers, Amazon and Flipkart, is a lot about the sales. Yeah. And often it gets very confusing. You don't know whether Big Billion Day sales belong to Amazon or the Great Indian Sale belongs to Flipkart. Yeah. So versus that, when I saw the last ad which you just showed, there was this blue bar on shopping. Right. So where at a 45 degrees angle, you're talking about the sale and you have this, particular blue studded bar. So is that a device which Flipkart uses or invests upon?
No, that is not a device. I think it was just part of the product window and CG and a nice way to show what are the categories available, but not necessarily as a strategic visual device that we carried forward in any of the other communication that we put forward. So just one campaign long.
So one of the questions which has been in my head is from the point of view of marketing. So from a positioning landscape and a competition landscape, who are those brands or categories that Flipkart would consider competition? And what is the real positioning difference or the segmentation difference, would you say, between a Flipkart and an Amazon? And do you think it is something which has always remained like that, or has it evolved and modified over the years?
So back in that day, I think the way we were looking at competition, there were competition at two levels. One was because we were a full service retailer. We were in competition with two other full service retailers, which were Amazon and Snapdeal at that point in time. And then fashion was a very strategic category. So after electronics was the largest category in terms of revenue driving. Within electronics also, it was smartphone. In most important category in terms of revenue, customer acquisition, etc. On that, we had two players who we would consider competition, while there were lot of other players as well, but two very significant players. One was Myntra and the second one was Jabong. And Myntra first took over Jabong, and then Myntra was absorbed by Flipkart. So it was a bit of an inorganic expansion strategy there. But from a fashion retailer perspective, it was those two. And from a general retailer perspective, it was Amazon and Snapdeal.
So, another popular topic of debate and discussion about marketeers is really on performance versus proposition. And within proposition, it is about features versus benefits. Yeah. So performance is obviously something like chains have to focus on, which is their sales and all of that. But within proposition, there is features versus benefits. Now, arguably, because of the nascent nature of the category, both the brands have been focusing a lot more on features. The fact that we got so much of range, we got so much of this and that. So, do you feel that the time was not right to move into benefits, or do you think they also were doing benefits?
As far as I can remember, of all the communication that used to be out across different category players, it was about features, because the evolution is that you first need to give a factual claim out and not layer it with a benefit. So if I just put out a benefit, for example, if I say fastest delivery, it is open to discussion or debate or interpretation by the consumer what fast means. But the moment I say 30-minute delivery, it's a feature, but it takes all guesswork out, and it's a far superior functional proposition versus a benefit-led proposition. So typically my learning, because I've spent time in consumer technology industries, my learning is that you first need to communicate a feature before you can pivot to a benefit of that feature. Even if you look at smartphone advertising, it's very feature-led, 13 megapixel camera, privacy at its core, how we do it, etc., etc. So generally, you need to first tell the what, and then therefore what happens, or the benefit that happens to you.
Nice. Also, the Cola wars are legendary, but this whole, battle between the Flipkart and the Amazon, through your eyes, how did you see it? And, we already know who lost, which is probably Snapdeal. But I think who's the winner between Amazon and Flipkart is not very evident. So, what do you think about the wars that you saw happening around you?
See, there was actually a period of these fierce wars, but they were not as fierce as the Cola wars. So I do remember that when Jeff Bezos was coming to India for the first time in 2014, we made it a point, Flipkart made it a point, from the airport to the Amazon office, cover all the streets with Flipkart outdoors. And that's really cheeky, and I don't know whether it serves the consumer or not, but sometimes marketeers go on vanity trips like that. So we actually did that. And then there used to be that was the world of freshly discovered Twitter banters and trolls. So I also remember a big Twitter troll stroke banter happening between Flipkart, Amazon, and Snapdeal, where I think somebody put out, there was a empty, I don't remember it exactly, but from what I can recall, I think there was an empty Amazon packaging in the Flipkart reception. So somebody had called for something shopped from Amazon. Somebody took its picture and put it up saying that even Flipkart shops from Amazon, Flipsters shop from Amazon or something. And then Snapdeal jumped onto it, and then Flipkart replied, and then that became a big troll that got covered in various, marketing publications, etc. But those incidents are few and far between. I think two realizations that all e-commerce players had. One was that it was an unpenetrated market and there was headroom for everyone to grow. So there is a large ocean out there, and we really don't need to fight amongst ourselves. We really need to get more and more. So category expansion, market expansion was the key goal. So we didn't really waste much of our resources, energies to why, market leader position in terms of through advertising and such cheeky stuff. The second phase came of system unit economics. So while everybody was focusing in the earlier phases on gross merchandising value, which is basically how much you sell, everybody was bleeding red. And from as far as I know, the latest figures, both Amazon and Flipkart are still bleeding red. So they've not broken, like they're not even right now. So then the whole focus shifted on how can we make those deliveries more efficiently so that we're not losing. And that's where all the attention kind of shifted to do marketing more efficiently, to get business at a more efficient cost, etc. So not very legendary wars in that sense.
Nice. So the other thing which is exciting for me is this power of focus. Again, if one uses the analogy or the reflection of Coke and Pepsi, right? Coke for the longest time was known to be more focused because they focused only on beverages, while a Pepsi expanded their focus into food as well with Frito-Lays. Yeah, but now this logic seems to be coming a bit full circle, because now you have a Coke saying that we are, only going to have only so much of a business of aerated beverages, and we're going to get into juices, but we are still going to focus on drinks only. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and those, that's pretty easy to empathize with because they are product companies, right? But with Flipkart and Amazon, this sort of a strategy where I see Flipkart as more desi, more Indian, and hence more value conscious, and hence if they're taking a call to focus on the larger ticket sizes, obviously it has sustainability and profitability at its root. Yeah. Versus an Amazon is trying to become more of a full service company, saying that we'll also do groceries, because maybe you'll build loyalty because there are more trips to the home. And they are also, what I have noticed, a little bit more lax on returns. They probably lose a lot more money by trying to solve that consumer service battle more easily. So how do you think this is really playing out in their business sustainabilities? I mean, one, what's your reflection on this strategy, one versus the other? And second, what does your gut say is the right strategy forward?
See, you are right in your analysis. Flipkart is actually more focused on becoming a full service retailer, from quick commerce to everything under the hook. But they also have the payments, which is phone pay, and they've also diversified because they've taken up a Clear Trip, and I think Shopee is their social commerce wing, Shopsy or Shopee. So there is a realization that once you get the customer acquisition cost is extremely high and cost per sale is very high. So once you get a customer, you can always remarket and get him back through marketing levers, but that is an expensive way to live. So there should be a way in which we can lock in consumer and perhaps look at it more like a customer lifetime value equivalent. And the telecom industry does that really well, because you spend a little bit on acquisition, but then you really lock that consumer in for a while and for a couple of years, and you monetize and obviously get that value back. So in Airtel, we always used to look at a customer lifetime value, assuming that a particular customer with particular demographics coming in would stick with us for X value. We will upgrade him, etc., etc. And this is how the value chain will continue. For a retailer, especially a retailer, an e-tailer, which has so much of customer data sitting with them, they should be able to build loyalty programs. They should be able to build in programs, both in terms of marketing as well as product features, that locks the consumer in more than just the deal part, because those are, again, very expensive ways to live. I think what Amazon is doing, and I mean, it's well known that Amazon is doing, because they have a Prime program where they kind of lose money initially, but over time, Prime consumers spend more, they stick more, they come back more, etc. Similarly, the Prime video service as well as the faster delivery service, they're both so that you can lock in consumers. Amazon Pay is again another attempt so that you kind of, there are more reasons for consumers to come in. So retailers are looking for ways to kind of give core service plus so that there are more reasons for consumers to come back. And loyalty program is a typical example. Flipkart did pilot with a loyalty program back in the day, but we couldn't successfully launch or scale it because it was still a very nascent industry. I think Amazon with its Prime offering does that really, really well, because it's known that Prime consumers are high value shoppers and etc. And what they save in delivery charges, I think much more than that they spend. So it kind of evens out at some point in time. So that's basically the difference. I think it's a very different strategy, because Flipkart is still, the way I see it, and I could be wrong, but Flipkart is still in focusing on maximizing the basket size and giving consumers vast. Whereas Amazon, I think their whole DNA and ethos is on customer obsession and service. So they don't mind losing a bit of a money in the start, but they want to retain the consumer and give a very superior experience. And they are here for the long haul, because both the companies are extensively putting money behind their India operations. Flipkart is now owned by Walmart. And after that takeover happening, they did kind of become slightly more, I would say, prudent in marketing and becoming more efficient. But largely, if you look at even Walmart and what their model is, they're also largely a retailer. So it's the same, like they come with a retailer mindset, versus Amazon comes with a slightly more different mindset, where they're trying to be present at multiple consumer touch points.
Another iconic brands and the conversation regarding Flipkart, one of my very favorite brand. So, Saurabh, what was the 3 takeaways and learnings from this particular conversation today?
So, we have had, a conversation on Amazon in the past where we talked about Aur Dikhao. And now we've had a conversation on Flipkart. So for me, one of the most valuable parts was again understanding how the positionings and strategy for these brands are so different, which is very, very interesting to see. Yeah. Now, beyond that, if we go down to this advertising specifically, I think there were 3 key takeouts which I would like to, reflect upon. The first key takeout is the fact that as you expand your bouquet of offerings, and they were already strong in electronics and they were strong in books, but they wanted to get in a new cohort because they knew that largely men were doing the shopping. So they wanted to bring in women. So whenever you bring in a new cohort, a new consuming audience, or a new segment, often you need to tailor your communication to their needs. Yeah, which is why you see certain continuity. So you see the continuity in terms of the fact that the kind of target audience remains the same, the tonality, the humor, the modernity remains the same, but the fact that you had to be empathetic to the woman, and you need to offer to her what she is seeking, which is range. And I think that is what Flipkart did really well. So I think it's about the fact that with each new strategic task, you need to understand a new consumer and adopt a new tonality. The second for me was the reflection on the strategy between Amazon and Flipkart. And while Amazon wanted to expand their bouquet of offerings, Flipkart wanted to go into large products and large purchase sizes, which is why sales like Big Billion Day became so important for them. And hence, if you see the second piece of advertising, it was all about the sale commercial. And again, how they did that very logically in the right manner by reaching out to the right audience. Yeah. And the third part for me is about, what do you change and what do you retain? I mean, as a brand, Flipkart would have loved to retain the kid adults as the mnemonic, but they just did not fit at this particular point in time, because oftentimes the most lovable mnemonics can become jaded. And as we talked about the fact that they were becoming a bit jaded, which is why they had to shift out and look at something new there, right? And also for something like a new offering of curtains, talking to the homemaker, maybe all of that won't fit very well. Yeah. So hence about the fact that you build certain assets, but you need to evolve with them based on your brand tasks, right? So hence, in summary, the 3 things that I took out from this conversation is that understand your strategy. From the strategy comes out your brand opportunities, and from there comes the communication strategy. Second, you have an overall strategy which helps you understand the importance of driving business, the role of sales, and finally how mnemonics which you have built might have to evolve in line with your new tasks. So these for me were the key three learnings from this conversation.
Wow, super. Thank you so much, Saurabh, for sharing these takeaways with us and with our viewers also. Yeah, I literally enjoy this part of the conversation every week. With
Great. Looking forward to next week.
Same here. So thank you for all the viewers and listeners for patiently listening to us and viewing us.